Hey everybody, good morning. Today we're going to work on our fourth paragraph of our biography. The first paragraph was our introduction, and then we had two body paragraphs, one about their childhood and another paragraph about what made them famous. And then from there, we're going to write our conclusion today. So remember our introduction, we started with an upside down triangle. We started broad and we got to the point. Well, today we're going to start at the point and go broader. So the first thing you should always do before you start typing or writing is to reread what you have, because every time I reread it, I make a little bit of changes. So I'm going to go back and read the introduction with me. Suppose you were a young girl playing outside your home. Suppose you were thrown in a ship and placed in the ship's hold with the ugly rats. Suppose you heard the chained adults crying and moaning. Suppose after 10 weeks at sea you arrived at Boston Harbor in 1761. Suppose you were frail, scared, and naked. Your name was Phyllis Wheatley, and you were now a slave in the American colonies. Okay, that's my introduction. I highlighted my thesis or my point in yellow. So that's what I'm going to start with today. Now that was, most of you just suppose. I'm going to skip the second way we could have done an introduction. Now this is my childhood. This is what we wrote yesterday. Phyllis's childhood was ripped away from her. That's her claim. Now I'm going to have evidence to prove that. She was bought by Susanna Wheatley to become her servant or slave. Mrs. Wheatley soon realized that Phyllis was bright. She learned English very quickly, and Miss Wheatley decided to teach her to read. She learned how to read and then started to read the Bible. For example, she did so well that she learned difficult subjects like Greek, Latin, mathematics, and poetry. Because she loved to read poetry, Phyllis began to write poetry when she was very young. Okay, that was all my evidence. And in another color, I put my reasoning sentence. In other words, Phyllis was extremely intelligent. Now, on your writing, you don't need to do this. I'm just doing this to help you see. So that's my first that was my first body paragraph. Now, the second one is what we're writing about what she was remembered for. So Phyllis was remembered for her poetry. That's my claim. Now, for Babe Ruth, you'd say Babe Ruth was remembered for his career in baseball, or Albert Einstein. Albert was remembered for his science knowledge. Okay, so I have to have some evidence to prove that. She was the first African woman to have a book published. I need to probably say in the American colonies, because there might have been books published other places. So see, I changed it, even though I wrote this yesterday. On January 24, 1774, the Boston Gazette told people how to purchase the book. The book was called Poems on Various Subjects, Religious and Moral. Remember, if you have a book, you need to underline it. This was shocking for the time. It was illegal to teach African Americans to read. So what Phyllis did was extraordinary. Now, we've already used in other words for our reasoning sentence starter. Another way we could do that is you say consequently. So we can use in other words or consequently. Since we've already said in other words once, we're going to change it to consequently. Comma, you always have to have a comma. Phyllis' poems show the hurt of being taken away from home and her love of freedom. So that's my second body paragraph. Well, now I have my triangle. I've got to start at my point and go broader. So I'm going to go back and look at my thesis. Your name was Phyllis Wheatley, and you're now a slave in the American colonies. So I'm going to have to say something about being a slave in the American colonies. So I'm going to scroll back down. See, so I'm going to start with my point. That's my thesis. And then I'm going to go look at my cursor. See, it's right here. And I'm going to go broader. So let's see what I did. And we're going to start our conclusion with the words in conclusion. That's our sentence starter. So in conclusion, comma, Phyllis Wheatley was America's first great poet, because I spoke about her being a poet. One word to describe Phyllis was intelligent. She made the most of every day, and her poetry made an impact. So notice my conclusion is not very long. It's only 3 sentences. But I think I probably should say something about a slave. Phyllis Wheatley was America's first great poet, even though she was a slave. Okay. One word to describe Phyllis was intelligent. She made the most of each day, and her poetry made an impact. Because she could have been really angry about how her life changed and how she was taken from her mother, but she didn't. She was still positive and so forth. So notice, I'm going to move mine up just a little bit. Notice that it's only 3 sentences. You start with in conclusion. You re-say your thesis a different way. I did one word to describe, and then I made a sentence that kind of goes broader. That she made the most of each day, and her poetry made an impact. I'm going to say on the world. So our conclusion is only 3 sentences. So please write your conclusion, and before you submit, let's go back and read everything and make sure we've got the 4 paragraphs. We have an introduction, body paragraph 1 about the childhood, body paragraph 2 about what made them famous, and our conclusion. And when you're typing, like, you won't really need this. I can get rid of that. You're going to go to the last words you typed, and that's freedom. And then I'm going to hit enter 1, 2 times. So that way you're having paragraphs. So there's going to be like a space between each paragraph. Please remember, after a comma, we don't capitalize unless it's a proper noun. But you always space after a comma 1 time, and you space 1 time after a period. Happy writing. Thank you, everybody. If you need any help, just contact me.